Hello and welcome to our pronunciation video series. My name is Professor Fung and this is video lesson 7. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that many students ask for all the time. And that is how to pronounce the English past tense. This is something that students ask me for all the time because English past tense is actually not that easy to pronounce. Now, the irregular past tense is very difficult, but even the regular past tense, which is all spelled the same with ed, is not pronounced exactly the same each time. So today we're going to be talking about the rules. First, for English regular past tense ed, especially the 3 different pronunciations of ed, which is what we are going to focus on today. And then at the very end, I'll give you 2 things that you can do to practice using the past tense, the regular past tense ed. The spelling of the ed is not that difficult, but the pronunciation of it can be very tricky for students. So I have some rules to help you with this today, and we'll practice pronouncing it as well. So I'm going to start here with a little paragraph that is all in the past tense. I want you to listen to me pronounce the past tense words, especially notice the ones ending in ed, and listen to the way that I pronounce the ed, and then we'll talk about it together. So I'll go ahead and read it first. Last week was a difficult week for me. I worked overtime at work, and I finished a major project for one of my classes. My history teacher assigned 2 chapters of reading, and my math teacher decided it was time for a test. Also, one of my friends moved apartments, and I helped her move all of her things. At the end of the week, I needed extra sleep because I was exhausted. Okay, so this paragraph, I spoke it for you because I wanted you to listen to the different pronunciations of the ed ending words in this paragraph. I've underlined them here for you, and I want us to try to pronounce them. The first underlined word that you should have heard, was the word worked. Can you pronounce that after me? Worked. Worked. Good. You should have noticed that the ed is sounding like a T. Pronounce it again. Worked. Very small T on the end there. Okay, try the next one. Finished. Finished. Good. Remember, you can always pause the video and repeat after me if you need a little more time. Good. Finished ends with a T sound also. Try the next one. Assigned. Repeat after me. Assigned. Good. That one didn't sound like a T. That one sounded a little bit different. It sounded like a D. How about the next one? Repeat after me. Decided. Decided. Okay, very good. That one didn't sound like a T or a D. It sounded like the word did. Decided. Very nice. How about the next one? Moved. Moved. Good. That one sounded like a D again. How about one more? Helped. Helped. Okay, good. That one sounded like a T. Let's try another one. Needed. Needed. Okay, we have one sounding like an id or a did again at the end of the word. And then the very last one on our page, exhausted. Exhausted. Okay, very good. And that one should have sounded like did or id again on that one. Now notice the word exhausted actually isn't a verb all the time. This can be an adjective. So the ed ending, English loves the ed ending. It's not only used for verbs. It's used for many other things like adjectives, for example. But they all follow the same rule of pronunciation for words that end in ed. So let's find out what is that rule and how can we pronounce our past tense correctly. So the ed ending, as you noticed from doing it with me, actually has 3 pronunciations. We have the pronunciation where the ed sounds like a T, as in the word worked. Pronounce for me, worked. In that case, the E is silent and the D sounds like a T. One more time for me, worked. Okay, that's pronunciation number 1. Pronunciation number 2, the second option for ed, is for it to sound like a D. Look at the example. Moved. Moved. For this, the E is silent again, and we're just pronouncing a D. So the V and the D are close together like vd, right? Try the word moved. Good. And then the last possible pronunciation is needed. And in this one, the ed sounds like id, or the end of the word sounds like did. Try for me, needed. Needed. Okay, let's try all three. Repeat after me. Worked, moved, needed. Okay, very nice. So those are the three pronunciations of the ed ending, as a T, as a D, or as an id. And the big question that we have today is, when do we pronounce the ed as a T? When do we pronounce the ed as a D? And when do we pronounce the ed as id? And knowing these rules will help us to pronounce these words. So let's start working on these rules. Let's start first with words that end in a T sound, right? In just the T, like we talked about with the word worked. So let's look at some example words like this. And let's try to pronounce them. And then let's see if we can figure out what the rule is. So go ahead and take a look with me. Look at the first word. Hoped. Okay, good. Now remember, with these words, we're changing the E is silent, and the D actually is going to sound like a T. So it sounds like hoped. Repeat after me, hoped. Good. This one, let's try this one as well. Why don't you try to pronounce it before me? Yeah, now repeat after me, looked. Very nice. Okay, now this one has funny spelling, but this is the word laugh, and that E is silent. And then we have our T sound. Pronounce it. Good. Now pronounce after me, laughed. Okay, very good. How about this one? Go ahead and pronounce it. Missed. Good. You know what? This word actually sounds exactly the same as the word mist, like fog that we sometimes see outside when the weather is cold. It's the same. Mist, mist. The pronunciation is exactly the same. The spelling is different and the meaning is different. Okay, how about this word? Let's take off our E, make it into a T, and pronounce. Washed. Yeah, very nice. Okay, and our very last one, take off our E, pronounce the D as a T, watched. Good. Okay, let's try all of them. Repeat after me. Hoped, looked, laughed, missed, washed, watched. Very nice. It's hard to hear that T. It's very silent. A T at the end of the word is very, very quiet. Not quite silent, but it is a little bit quiet. If you look at me for just a moment, what your T should do is your tongue will flap up and pause in position. Washed, washed. It's not going to be like a T at the beginning of the word where you go t, like to. It's much smaller, and you don't want too much. You don't want washed, right? So your tongue can kind of pause up. Washed, washed. It's a very small sound, which is what makes listening to the past tense very, very difficult. A lot of people can't hear the past tense when they're listening to others, so then it becomes very difficult to learn it and use it in their own speaking. So that is part of the reason also while we work on the rules and think about it this way. Okay, let's go back to those same words that we were looking at and decide what rule we want to use to help us know how to pronounce the ending. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little fun secret. The way that you know how to pronounce the ed ending is by looking at the sound right before the ed. So hop ends in a P sound, and P prefers an ending that is a T sound. So anytime a word ends in a P, it will always be a P and a T, like pt. Try pronouncing the P and the T for me. Pt. I know that's a little difficult, right? The same is true with an S. An S sound likes to have a T after it. So anytime you have an ed ending after an S, it will be an ST sound. Pronounce for me. St. St. Good. The same is true with a K. K likes a T. So any word that ends in a K will want a T after it for the past tense. Pronounce for me. Kt. Kt. This is true for looked. This is true for hiked. This is true for any other word that ends in that K. Now the same is true for SH, and the same is true for an F. Now I know this is not spelled as an F, but it is pronounced as an F. An F, after an F you'd want a T sound, ft, and then this one is a CH, cht. So actually what we're looking at is the sound before the ending, and that helps us decide how to pronounce the ending. So then students say, oh no, do I have to memorize which sounds are the sounds that like a T after them? That sounds terrible. Okay, so look at me and I'll show you how you can know which sounds prefer a T after them. The sounds that have no voice are the sounds that prefer a T after them. So you say, what do you mean no voice? Okay, so a P sound, if you make it and you put your hand on your throat, you will not feel a vibration. Try it with me. Put your hand on your throat and then go p, p, p. You should feel no vibration happening in your throat. This is different from a sound like n. Try a n and see if you can feel the vibration. Give it a try. N. Yeah, you should feel a vibration. Okay, but a sound like P has no vibration. Try it for me. P, p. Okay, good. And the past tense ending that sounds like a T also has no vibration. Try the T for me. T, t. It should have no vibration happening. English likes to match. So if you have a sound with no vibration, it wants to go with a T that has no vibration. Try for me. Pt. Yeah, the P and the T both have no vibration, and so they both match. The same is true for an S. No vibration, so it'll match with a T. The same is true for a K. No vibration, or a sh, no vibration. Let's try those words again. You can keep your hand on your throat and feel for no vibration at the end of those words. Let's try those together. Pronounce after me. Hoped, missed, looked, washed, laughed, watched. Very nice. So sometimes students, if they have a difficult time with deciding if it is vibrating or it's not vibrating, sometimes what students will do is just think of the sounds as quieter sounds, going with a quieter sound. Like P being a quieter sound, we'll go with a T, which is a quieter sound. So these are some of those endings of sounds of words that will take an ED sounding like a T. But remember, past tense doesn't only end in T. Sometimes it ends in a sound like a D. So let's go ahead and look at some words that will help us practice that type of ending for the past tense ED. All right, these are all words that usually will end in the ED ending where it will sound like a D. So, for example, repeat after me. Robbed. Good. Amazed. Very nice. Hugged. Excellent. Rained. Very good. Loved. Good. Called. It's important to notice for these that E is silent. I hear students sometimes say things like loved or called, but remember that E is silent and we are just pronouncing loved, called. Yeah, very nice. And all of these, the ED is pronounced as a D. So now we want to know our rule again. We want to think about which type of word will be pronounced with a D on the end. And again, this rule has to do with the sound at the end. The sound right before the ED will help you decide how to pronounce that ED. But now, for D ending ones, you want to have a sound that has voice. So if you put your hand on your throat again, and you can copy me, feel for the sound B. B. You should feel a vibration. So a B sound will want to have an ending that sounds the same, that also has a vibration like D. Try for me. Robbed. And you should feel the B, and then you should feel the D. Both have vibration. The same is true for a lot of sounds in English. N is a sound that has vibration. Or the R has a sound that is vibration. L, like the L, that sound has vibration. There's actually a lot of sounds in English that are voiced sounds that have vibrations. Even all of the vowels have vibrations, like A as in stay, When you add an ending on that, you want a vibrating after your A. Stay, stayed. And you want to have a D on the end of that. So that's how you know for the D ending as well. It's basically the same rule as the T. It's that English wants to match. It wants to put the same sounds together. So if you have a quiet, no voice sound, you want it to go with a quiet, no voice T. If you have a loud, voiced sound, you want to go with a loud, voiced D sound. And that will give you the correct pronunciation of that past tense, ED. Let's try these ones again, these ones that sound like a D. Let's go back to them again. Pronounce after me, robbed. Now that D is not very loud. It's like the T. Your tongue just stops in position. Keep trying. Hugged. Loved. Amazed. Rained. Called. Now sometimes students say to me, it's so small, I can't hear if it's a D or a T. And it's true, the past tense in English is very, very small. But if you get your tongue in position and you use your vibration, then you know that you're producing the sound that you're supposed to be producing as you're pronouncing it. Now, how many types of pronunciations were there for the ED? Do you remember from the beginning of the video? How many pronunciations were there? Were there 2? No, there were 3. So we actually have one more pronunciation of ED that we want to practice and learn. Does anybody remember what that pronunciation sounded like? I'm amazed if you remembered that because that was from the beginning of the video. But the ED can also sound like id or like did at the end of a word. So let's look at this last type of ED and see if we can learn the rules for that. Okay, so here we have some words that are all pronounced with an ED ending, pronounced as id, or I always just say did because it sounds like the word did at the end, right? For example, pronounce after me, waited, loaded, needed, wanted. All of these have that did sounding on the end. Now, what do you notice about this? Is the E silent in these? No, the E is not silent. What you notice also is what is the letter or the sound right before the ED ending. Let's circle it. Waited, what is the sound right before? Yeah, it's a T. Loaded, what is the sound right before? It's a D. Needed, what is the sound right before? It's a D. And wanted, what is the sound right before the ED? Good. It's a T. Notice that those are all basically the same sound. It's the T or the D. And if you use that T or D at the end of that base form of the verb, then you want to keep your E and pronounce it, and you want to pronounce it id or did. Let's try these words one more time. Repeat after me. Waited, loaded, needed, wanted. Yeah, very nice. Pronunciation of that ED as an id. So now we have the 3 pronunciations of the past tense in English. And now we can make ourselves some rules. So let's go ahead and look at our rules to see if they will help us. Our first rule says, pronounce ED as T, t when the base verb ends in a sound with no voice. Remember that T wants to match with a sound with no voice. Okay, how about our next rule? Pronounce ED as D or D when the base verb ends in, yeah, that's right, a sound with voice, that vibration in your throat. And that likes to go with the D. Very good. And our last one, pronounce ED as id when the base verb ends in a T or a D sound. And those are our rules for pronouncing English past tense ED. Why don't we practice these just a little bit, see if you can guess or if you can use the rules to know how to pronounce some words. So why don't we try this together and see how you do? Okay, pronounce the first word, what do you think the pronunciation is going to be? Silent E? Yes, definitely silent E. In fact, we can look at all of them, and if it's not a T or a D, it's a silent E, right? So K, silent. K, silent. L, silent. S, silent. Will this one be silent? Yes, you're right. What about this one? Silent? Oh, wait, nope, it's a T, so let's keep it. Okay, perfect. So we know when we have to pronounce the E. Now we want to see if we can find ones that need to be T instead of D. So let's go back and look. K, k. Is that a sound that has voice or no voice? No voice. So let's make this one T. Pronounce it for me. Picked. Good. How about this one? Is the K, oh, it's K again. Perfect. So we already know K has no voice. This will need to be T. Perfect. Pronounce after me. Walked. Good. What about this sound, the L sound? Does that have voice or no voice? Put your hand on your throat if you need to. Oh, yeah, there's some voice there, so let's keep it as a D. Past. Does the S have voice? You can feel your throat if you need to. S. No voice, so let's make that a T. V. Ooh, make that sound and feel your throat. V. V. Does it have voice or no voice? Yeah, that should have voice, so we'll keep our D. Okay, so now we know how to pronounce all of these words. Pronounce them after me, please. Picked, walked, smiled, passed, loved, wanted. Very good. Notice how many words end in that T-E-D or D-E-D. Is it a lot of these words that have that id sounding ending with a pronounced E? No, it's not a lot of words. In fact, most of them have a silent E. Most of our past tense words with ed will have a silent E. It's only a few that end in a T or a D that might have that pronounced. Okay, let's do one more practice, and then we'll go ahead and I'll give you some exercises that you can do on your own. But let's just look at these last couple sentences, and you can pronounce them after me. Let's go ahead. We looked at the car. We looked at the car. Okay, how would you pronounce that, ed? Yeah, I would do a T for that one. Now, remember, T between two vowels can change to a D. So sometimes if we get a sentence where there's a vowel after it and we are using linking, which we've learned about also, then it might actually change for a D. We looked at. That would probably be a D when you connect it to at. Try it for me. We looked at the car. Very nice. Try the next one. They cleaned the kitchen. That's with a D sound and a silent E. Good. Try the next one. The student listened carefully. Good. Listened with a D on the end and a silent E. Very nice. And the last one. The man waited for the bus. Okay, good. That's our only one there that has the id on it. So let's try those past tense ones in that sentence. Try in those sentences. Let's try that again. Looked at. Good. Cleaned, listened, waited. Okay, very nice. So now you're ready to go out and practice this yourself. So let me give you a couple practice exercises that you can do to work on this. The first one I suggest is that you speak or talk for 1 minute about the things that you did last week, and you record yourself. So talk about the things you did. I walked here, I listened to this, and use some of those past tense words. Then, after you record your 1 minute speaking about last week, listen to it and try to write down the past tense verbs that you used. That way you can check them. See, did I pronounce that past tense ending correctly? And you can check yourself that way. Another way that you can practice is make 3 lists of ed words. Make a list of some ed words pronounced with a T. Make a list of some ed ending words pronounced like a D, and make a list of some words pronounced like id. Remembering, of course, that it'll be hard to think of those ones. There's not that many. So make that list and then practice that list so that that pattern can become a natural part of your brain. The more you practice it, the more you use it correctly, your brain will automatically do it. We cannot memorize the rules and then try to use them exactly while we're speaking. We would be going crazy. We would say, I walk Okay, is K a sound with voice or no voice? Oh, that's no voice. Okay, now I'll do a T. I walked to the store. Nobody does that when they're speaking to people, right? But if we practice based on the rules and use it a lot, you will do it automatically in your speaking. And that really is our goal. When we don't have to remember the rule anymore because we've pronounced past tense so many times that our brain does it automatically and we do it automatically in our speaking. So one way to do that is, like I said, to make some lists of words, practice pronouncing them with that correct ending, and then record yourself pronouncing them and check your pronunciation. Go ahead and keep practicing your ED ending words and practicing how you are pronouncing that past tense in English. Have fun. Thank you for joining me.